May 2026, Paul Ricard Circuit, Southern France. I step out of a Genesis hypercar, still wearing my gloves, still grinning like a teenager who just got away with something. A journalist asks me the obvious question. Looking back at 60 years in this sport, what do I miss the most? I tell him plainly that I do not miss the past at all. What I miss are the people who lived it alongside me, the ones who made any of it possible in the first place. Then I add something else, almost as an afterthought, that with enough time passing, a person realizes they never quite told the people they loved that they loved them. It probably sounds like a nice thing an old man says to a reporter before lunch, but my career was never just lap times and trophies. Twice I finished second in the Formula One World Championship. 6 times I won the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And underneath all of it sits a set of facts I rarely bring up unprompted. My own body paid a price most fans never think about. So did my family. So did a question that still follows me, decades later, every time a certain other driver's name gets mentioned. The first prize came in 1970, and it started with fire. Spanish Grand Prix, Jarama circuit, just outside Madrid. Opening lap. I am back with Ferrari that season. The car feels right under me, better than it has in years. Then Jacky Oliver's car comes across into mine. Metal on metal. A spin. And then the sound changes. Fire. Not a small one. Both cars, wrecked, sitting in a fireball together. I do not remember deciding to move. I just remember moving. Belt off. Hands finding the edge of the cockpit. Heat everywhere. On my arms, my neck, my face. 20 seconds, maybe less, maybe more. Time does something strange to you inside a fire. It does not run the way it runs everywhere else. I got out. The burns were real. Motor racing archives from that period recorded plainly. A fireball engulfing both wrecked cars, myself carrying the marks of it afterward for years. A profile written around that same time described the scar tissue on my skin as proof of what this job actually costs a man, alongside the leg I had already broken 2 years earlier at the Canadian Grand Prix. Here is the part people find hard to believe. There was no gap in the calendar to hide in. No missed race, no quiet weeks, recovering in some clinic, while the championship moved on without me. I went again. Monaco came next, only weeks later, and I was there on the grid. Ask most fans today what they remember about my career, and Jarama rarely comes up at all. They remember the wins. They remember Le Mans, a fire that nearly took my skin off in 1970 has become a footnote, buried under 6 victories at one racetrack in France. I have never minded that exactly, but that same year, 1970, cost me something else too, something that had nothing to do with fire at all. What does it mean to fight for a championship when the man ahead of you is no longer alive to defend it? I found out the answer in 1970. Going into Monza that September, Jochen Rindt was 20 points clear of me in the standings. 20 points, even after retiring from his own home race in Austria weeks earlier. He had the car, the new Lotus 72, and the season to match it. I was the closest thing to a threat, and even that was generous. Then, in practice, he crashed. He died before the race even started. I did not inherit the championship that day. I inherited a chance at it, nothing more. 2 races were left. If I won both, the title would technically be mine. So I raced Watkins Glen with that hanging over me, and I finished 4th. Not good enough. Mathematically, it was over. Rindt had 45 points. I ended the season with 40, in 2nd place, for the 2nd year running. People assume I was devastated to lose. I was not. Not in the way they think. It would have been dreadful, I have said many times since, to carry a stolen trophy around for the rest of my life. What a chance, really, what a chance I was given to not have to do that. Jochen deserved that title. Nobody should get to dream about beating a man who cannot stand there and defend himself. Here is the part fewer people know. Jochen and I were not close. Some who raced alongside both of us have said the chemistry between us never really worked. That safety politics sat right in the middle of it. A profile written around that same period called me a fatalist, someone who did not fully agree with the other drivers pushing hardest for change. The public saw a man who once walked to his car to protest danger. Some of the men I actually raced against saw something more complicated. But that contradiction was nothing compared to what 1970 also cost me at home. 1970, the same year Rindt died, the same year I finished second again. That year I also got married. Her name was Catherine Blatton. I was at the height of everything, Ferrari's #1 driver, my photograph in every racing magazine in Europe. We stood together, made the promise people make, in front of family who had spent years worrying every time I climbed into a car. I will not sit here and tell you racing killed that marriage. That would be too simple, and it would not be honest either. Marriages end for 100 reasons, most of them private, most of them belonging to two people and nobody else. What I can tell you is the chronology, plainly, because chronology is a fact and motive is not. I spent that decade racing through one of the most dangerous periods this sport has ever seen. Home for a few days, gone again, home again, gone again. Somewhere inside that rhythm, the marriage that began in 1970 ended in divorce. Years later, my daughter Vanina decided she wanted to race too. I did not push her toward it. I did not need to. The pull was already there, the same one that had been there for me at her age. By 1998, she was competing properly. And that year we shared a car together at the Spa, 24 hours. She went off the road. Her fault, by her own admission, afterward. Not mine, not the car's fault either. A simple mistake, the kind every young driver makes once and learns from. But I remember sitting there, in the same machine, watching the exact risk I had chosen for myself decades earlier become a risk my own daughter had now chosen too, with her name on the same door I once climbed through. Racing was never something that stayed on the racetrack for me. It came home, it sat at the dinner table, it got married, and it got divorced. And eventually it climbed into a race car with my daughter's hands on the wheel. There is one more thing from those years I still cannot fully close the door on. It has nothing to do with my family at all. Spa-Francorchamps, 1985, the 1,000-kilometer race, fighting for the lead at Eau Rouge, one of the fastest and most unforgiving corners in this sport. Stefan Bellof is behind me, young, quick, the reigning sports car world champion, still only 27 years old. He once passed. We touch, my car goes into the barrier. His does not stop there. His hits the wall at full force. I get out. My car is wrecked, but I am not. I run toward his. Rescue staff are already there, working, trying. I try to help too. It takes more than 10 minutes. Stefan does not survive it. The organizers stopped the race early, out of respect, and nobody argues with that decision. Contemporary reporting at the time put it plainly, that Stefan's fate came down to a driving error on his part, pure and simple, pushing too hard against me in exactly the wrong place to do it. That has never been the whole story for me, not really. I was the driver at the center of that collision, And for 40 years now, whenever my name gets mentioned near his, the same question comes back around. What actually happened at Eau Rouge? I do not have a clean answer for you. I have never pretended to. The onboard camera fixed to my own car kept running through all of it. That footage still exists. People still watch it, still argue about it, still slow it down frame by frame, looking for something conclusive that may or may not be there. I was not the only person present that day, but I am the one still alive, decades later, still being asked to explain a corner that took less than 2 seconds to happen. 4 things now. My body. A championship I chose not to take. A family that carried the cost with me. And a question about Eau Rouge that has never fully gone away. There is something I said only recently, in 2026, that ties all 4 of them together in a way I did not expect. Back to Paul Ricard that same afternoon in May. The journalist is still waiting on my answer, pen ready, expecting something short and pleasant, not nostalgic for the past, nostalgic for the people. I want to be clear about what that sentence actually means, because it is easy to hear it as an old man being poetic and move on to the next question. It is not new, for one thing. 10 years earlier, in another interview, I said almost the same thing in different words. That we are what we are because we get surrounded by people who change our lives. That was not age talking. That has been the same answer for a decade, maybe longer than that. So run the 4 things back through that lens with me. Jarama was never really about the fire. It was about what my body agreed to carry so I could keep doing this. 1970 was never really about a trophy I did not take. It was about Jochen, and what I owed a man who could not argue with me anymore. Catherine and Vanina were never a footnote to my career. They were the actual cost of it, paid at home, by people who did not choose the danger the way I did. And Eau Rouge was never a statistic on a page somewhere. It was Stefan, 27 years old, and a question I still cannot fully answer. Not races, not machines, people, and the things I never quite said to them in time. The interview at Paul Ricard ends the way most of them do now. A handshake, a photograph, someone waving me toward the next appointment. I am not going to stand here and tell you I have made peace with all 4 of those things. The fire, I have made peace with. Jochen, mostly. My family, I hope so, though that is not really my decision to make alone. Stefan, I am not sure peace is even the right word for that one. But I am not denying any of it either. That is the part people miss. I do not live in the past. I never said the past was nothing. So when they ask me again, next year, at the next circuit, I will probably give them the same answer. Not nostalgic for the past. Nostalgic for the people.